We spend so much time thinking about, what we learn,
Hmm.
like the actual facts and skills and information we're trying to really absorb.
Yeah.
But have you ever stopped and actually thought about how you feel while all that's happening?
Yeah.
You know, because it turns out those moods and emotions we experience are actually a really powerful part of the learning process, but we often kind of overlook them.
That's so true, and that's exactly what we're diving into today, the
Yeah.
whole world of affect in education.
Ooh, affect.
I know it might sound kind of academic and jargony,
Yeah, it does a little bit.
but really at its core, it's just all about the moods and emotions. Those feelings that color our learning experiences.
Right.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. Understanding how your feelings actually influence how you learn is really, I think, a key
Totally.
to unlocking more effective learning for yourself.
100%. And to help us kind of unpack all of this, we're going to be looking at a really cool collection of research
Yes.
from a special issue of the Educational Psychology Review,
Great journal.
published back in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So think of this as like your fast track to understanding a really fundamental piece
Absolutely.
of the learning puzzle.
Love it.
So our mission today is to kind of explore what this research tells us about how your emotions and moods are totally intertwined with how you learn
Yeah.
and what really motivates you.
Yeah.
It's about giving you a new lens to look at your own learning journey.
I love that.
Okay, so let's jump right in when we talk about affect. What are we even talking about? Because it seems like there's a lot of kind of related words that get thrown around.
Yeah, for sure. And, the researchers themselves actually acknowledge that even in the field, the way we talk about, affect, mood, emotion, it's not always super consistent. So
Yeah.
you're going to see these terms used in slightly different ways, which I know can make it a bit confusing.
Right. It's not always like a perfectly clear map, even for the people doing the research.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so are there some helpful distinctions that we can make to kind of get a clearer picture for ourselves?
Yeah, definitely one really useful distinction that comes up across a lot of this research is between what they call trait-like affect and state-like affect.
Okay.
So think of trait-like affect as like your general kind of stable emotional tendencies. It's kind of part of your personality, how
Yeah.
you tend to feel kind of overall day to day.
Right.
But then state-like affect, that's much more about your immediate emotional response to a specific situation.
Okay.
So it's less stable, it's much more influenced by what's happening in that moment.
Got it.
And what's really interesting is that most of the research that we're looking at today actually focuses on the state-like affect,
Okay.
those immediate emotional reactions that are happening within learning environments.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's the feelings that you're having right there in the moment of learning that are probably going to have the most direct impact.
Exactly.
Okay, so then what about the difference between moods and emotions?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's always felt a little blurry to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. And there are a couple of different ways that researchers kind of approach this.
Right.
One common view, which you see in the work of Schutz and others, is that moods, they tend to be longer lasting and more diffuse.
Okay.
So you might just be in a generally good mood or a bad mood without being able to point to one specific thing that caused it.
Right.
Emotions, on the other hand, are seen as shorter and more intense experiences, and they're usually tied to a specific trigger or event.
Okay.
So you're happy because you finally understood a tricky concept, or you're frustrated because you keep hitting a roadblock on a problem.
Right. Okay, so it's kind of like longer general feeling versus a shorter specific reaction.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think I remember you mentioning another way to look at it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Pickrun, he offers a bit of a different perspective.
Okay.
He essentially views moods as just lower intensity forms of emotions.
Interesting.
He even uses the term emotional moods to describe those more sustained feeling states.
Got it.
So instead of two distinct categories, it's more like a scale of emotional intensity.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, whether it's a fleeting moment of confusion or a lingering sense of discouragement, both are on that spectrum of effect and both are influencing your learning.
Interesting. Okay, so even the experts have slightly different ways of kind of carving all of this up,
Yeah,
which really just highlights how complex our emotional lives are.
absolutely.
Okay, so these ideas about affect in learning, where did they come from? Are there any kind of big overarching theories that these researchers are drawing on?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This research draws a lot from social psychology in its theories of emotions.
Okay.
So appraisal theories developed by folks like Lazarus and Scherer, those are particularly influential.
And just to remind folks, what's appraisal theory again?
Yeah, so appraisal theories basically emphasize that The way you interpret events,
Okay.
your appraisal of them,
Hmm.
that directly shapes the emotions you experience. So it's not just what happens to you, but how you think about it that really drives your emotional response.
So, like, if I see a challenging problem and I think, oh, this is going to be tough, but I can figure it out,
Yeah,
I might feel determined.
exactly.
But if I think, oh, this is impossible, I'm going to fail, then I'm more likely to feel anxious.
Precisely. And, think of appraisal theory this way for your own learning. If you encounter a difficult topic and you tell yourself, what, this is a chance to really challenge myself and grow,
Yeah.
you're more likely to feel engaged and have some positive emotions. But
Right.
if you think, oh no, I'm not smart enough for this,
Uh,
you're probably going to feel anxious. And, the way you interpret that learning situation has a huge impact on how you feel and how well you learn.
totally makes sense.
Context is also seen as really important.
Okay.
As highlighted by Frida, emotions aren't just internal, they're very much connected to the situations we're in.
Right.
And then there's the dynamic systems approach, which Optanda and Turner bring, looking at how our emotions kind of develop and change over time
Okay.
through ongoing interactions.
Interesting.
And then finally, Ainley's work touches on circumplex models of effect.
Circumplex.
Yeah, so think of these like a map of your feelings,
Okay.
based on two main things.
Okay.
How positive or negative you feel,
Okay.
that's valence,
Got it.
and how energized or calm you feel,
Okay.
that's activation.
Interesting.
So excitement would be high on both of those,
Okay.
while feeling down and tired would be low on both.
Yeah, okay, I get that.
Right.
So that gives us a much clearer picture of like the different lenses that these researchers are using to understand affect.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're studying these feelings in education, but are they like looking at individual moments or taking a wider, more long-term view?
That's a great way to think about it. And following a framework from Schutz and DeCreux,
Okay.
we can think about three main levels at which affect is studied in education:
Okay.
structure, process, and social historical context.
Okay, let's dig into those. What does structure mean in this context?
So at the structure level, researchers are often focused on really defining and understanding specific types of feelings that are particularly relevant to learning.
Okay.
So think about academic emotions,
Okay.
the emotions that are directly linked to learning activities and outcomes.
Right.
This is a big area of focus for Pikran.
Hmm.
Or consider Ainley's work trying to really pin down what that feeling of interest actually entails.
Interesting.
Even research on how students manage their emotions when taking a test,
All right.
like the work by Schutz and his colleagues, that falls into this category.
Okay.
Identifying and understanding that specific emotional experience in a learning context.
God, so it's like identifying the different emotional building blocks in education.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what about process?
Process is all about how these emotional building blocks actually play out in the classroom
Okay.
and how they connect with other parts of learning. So how do those academic emotions develop as you engage with new material? How does feeling interested in something lead to you being more engaged and learning it more deeply?
Right.
Researchers like Meyer and J.C. Turner,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Oppenand and J.E. Turner,
Okay.
they really focus on this process level by looking at the emotions that students and teachers experience in real classroom settings and how those emotions unfold over time.
So it's the dynamic side of things, how these feelings emerge and change as learning happens.
Exactly.
Okay, and then the third level was social historical context.
Yes.
That sounds like it takes an even wider lens.
It does. It really emphasizes that your emotional experiences aren't just personal and happening in isolation.
Yeah.
They're shaped by your own past experiences, your social surroundings, and even broader cultural influences.
Right.
Oppenand and J.E. Turner, with their dynamic systems perspective, really highlight this,
Okay.
arguing that you can't fully grasp an emotional experience without considering that background.
So, for example, two students might feel very differently about getting a low grade
Yeah.
based on their previous experience.
Exactly, their academic history.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Schutz and his colleagues also touch on this when they examine how teachers' own life stories can influence their emotions in their profession.
Interesting.
And Pikran even points out how things like gender and culture can affect the kinds of emotions students tend to experience in learning settings.
That makes so much sense. Our past experiences definitely color how we feel in the present.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're getting a good handle on what affect is and the different ways researchers are looking at it.
Yeah.
Now, for the really fascinating part, how does all of this link up with the things we already know are crucial for learning, like what motivates us and how our brains actually process information?
This is where it gets really interesting because what you see in this research is a real push for a much stronger integration of affect, motivation, and cognition.
Okay.
The idea that these three things are connected isn't totally new.
Right.
Researchers who study motivation have touched on emotions,
Mm.
and there's a whole area of research on how our feelings and thoughts influence each other.
Right.
But for a long time, these have often been studied somewhat separately.
Yeah.
And the authors in this special issue are saying, no, these are deeply intertwined, and we need to understand how they all work together in educational settings to really understand learning.
So how do they actually influence each other? Can you give us some concrete examples from the research?
Absolutely. So one key way they interact is through those cognitive appraisals we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Remember, the way you interpret events directly influences the emotions you feel.
Right.
Several researchers here, including Schutz and his team, Pekron and Meyer and J.C. Turner, they build on those appraisal theories.
Okay.
Then there's the idea that what motivates you can shape how you feel.
Okay.
For example, Pickering-Ainley and Meyer and J.C. Turner
Mm-hmm.
suggest that your achievement goals,
Right.
so whether you're focused on truly understanding the material or just getting a good grade, can predict the kinds of emotions you'll experience while learning.
Okay.
So for you, this means that what you're aiming for in your learning can really color your emotional experience along the way.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
totally makes sense. So someone who's really driven to understand something deeply might feel frustrated, but ultimately engaged by a challenge.
Yes.
Whereas someone who's just focused on the grade might just feel stressed and defeated.
Exactly. And the influence goes both ways.
Okay.
So how you feel can also impact your motivation and your cognitive processes.
So it's not just motivation influencing affect, but affect can influence motivation.
Exactly, yeah.
Got it.
So Pekron's work, for instance, suggests that the emotions you experience while learning can influence the learning strategies you choose to use, your ability to manage your own learning, and ultimately how well you achieve your learning goals.
Wow.
Meyer and J.C. Turner propose that how you feel during a learning experience can actually change how you remember and think about that experience later on, which then affects how motivated you are to engage with similar learning in the future. And Ainley's research on interests suggests that this positive feeling of interest might actually act as a bridge connecting your learning goals and your belief in your abilities with how deeply you process information and how engaged you become in the learning activity.
Oh, that's so cool. So it's not a one-way street at all. It's this constant back and forth between how we feel, what drives us, and how we think.
Yes.
It really sounds like they're all part of the same system.
It's a learning ecosystem.
I love that.
Yeah, and while the researchers generally agree that these are bidirectional, reciprocal relationships,
Mm-hmm.
they do have slightly different ideas about just how integrated they are.
Okay.
So Pickering tends to see them as complex and interconnected, but still fundamentally distinct components.
Okay.
Whereas folks like Schutz and his colleagues, Meyer and J.C. Turner, Opt-Ein and J.E. Turner and Ainley, they lean towards a more deeply integrated view,
Okay.
suggesting that these three might even be inseparable and that we need entirely new ways of thinking, theoretically, to really capture this interconnectedness.
Wow. That's a pretty big shift in perspective.
It is, yeah.
Instead of thinking of them as three separate boxes, we need to see them as completely blended together.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, now trying to study something as complex and personal as feelings can't be easy.
No.
What kind of challenges do researchers face when they're trying to understand affect in educational settings?
You've hit on a really critical point here. Trying to study something as dynamic and often fleeting as your feelings presents some really significant methodological hurdles.
Yeah, like how do you even begin to measure something that can change from one moment to the next?
Right. And, just asking someone, how do you feel right now,
Right.
might not really capture the full picture.
Yeah, for sure.
The researchers in this special issue have used a whole range of different methods.
Okay.
So self-report questionnaires, those are very common.
Hmm.
And a lot of researchers have even developed their own specific scales to try and measure different aspects of affect, like Pekron's Achievement Emotions Questionnaire. Or the scales Schutz and his colleagues use to look at emotion regulation during tests.
Hmm.
But of course, these rely on you being able and willing to accurately describe your feelings,
Right.
which isn't always easy.
For sure.
So to try and get at that more dynamic in the moment experience, some researchers use what's called experience sampling methodology, or ESM,
Okay.
and diaries.
Okay.
These allow them to track how emotions shift over time as learning is actually happening.
Okay.
Meyer and J.C. Turner, as well as Pekron, have used these techniques.
Okay.
And then Ainley's work, using online assessments embedded directly in a computer program,
Wow.
is a really innovative way to try and capture those fleeting affective states as students are actively engaged in a learning task.
So that sounds like a much more immediate way to tap into how people are feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, what about getting a deeper more qualitative understanding of these experiences?
Yeah, qualitative methods are so valuable here.
Yeah.
Researchers like Pickren Schutz and his team Meyer and J.C. Turner and Opt-Aind and J.E. Turner talk about using things like in-depth interviews,
Hmm.
detailed analyses of classroom interactions,
Okay.
think aloud protocols where students verbalize their thoughts as they learn,
Right.
and even stimulated video recall where students watch recordings of their learning and reflect on their feelings at different points.
Oh, wow.
These methods can provide much richer, more nuanced insights into the why behind the emotions that students and teachers experience.
So it's a mix of trying to gather broad data
Yes.
across many people
Yes.
and really digging deep into individual experiences.
Exactly.
But what are some of the specific methodological worries or limitations that kind of keep these researchers up at night?
Well, one major concern, as Schutz and his colleagues point out, is that emotions are so transient.
Right.
The very act of asking you how you're feeling might actually change how you're feeling in that moment.
Right.
They also highlight the issue of what are called display rules, the social norms about which emotions are okay to show in a particular setting.
Right.
So students or teachers might not always be willing to honestly report their true emotional states if they think it's not socially acceptable.
Right. That makes total sense. So someone who's always felt anxious about tests might underreport their anxiety if they think it's not normal to feel that way.
Exactly. And the importance of considering your past emotional experiences and the broader learning environment is also a key concern for Schutz and his team.
Yeah.
Oppenheim and J.E. Turner also emphasize the need to understand the actor perspective,
Okay.
how you as an individual perceive and make sense of your own emotional experiences in a learning situation.
Right.
Meyer and J.C. Turner grapple with the sheer complexity of studying affect at multiple levels simultaneously
Yeah.
and suggest using what they call thin slice approaches, focusing on brief but very rich moments that capture multiple perspectives on the experience. And Pickren stresses the importance of being able to distinguish between general patterns of emotions across different people versus the unique patterns of emotional changes that happen within a single individual over time.
Right. These definitely sound like some really complex challenges. It sounds like there's no single perfect way to measure something as multifaceted as our feelings.
Exactly, and to try and overcome these limitations, the researchers suggest expanding our measurement tools even further in the future,
Okay.
incorporating things like observing actual behaviors, using physiological measures like heart rate or skin conductance to get at those more automatic responses, and even exploring neurophysiological indicators, what's happening in the brain.
Wow. So looking beyond just what people say and trying to tack into what their bodies and brains are doing too.
Exactly.
That sounds like a really promising direction for future research. Okay, so we've explored what affect is,
Yes.
how it connects to learning,
Mm-hmm.
and the challenges of studying it. But why does all of this actually matter for education and perhaps more importantly for you listening to this right now?
This is the really crucial so what question.
Yeah.
And the overwhelming agreement across all of this research is that affect is absolutely fundamental
Okay.
for understanding how learning happens and how engaged you are in that process.
Right.
It's not just a nice little side topic, it's right there at the heart of effective learning.
So by understanding our feelings about learning, we can actually become better learners ourselves.
Yes.
And educators can create more supportive and effective learning environments.
That's the core message, yeah.
Amazing.
Ainley's research, for example, suggests that if educators can find ways to spark and maintain that feeling of genuine interest in a topic, they can significantly boost how engaged students are and how deeply they learn.
So interesting.
Drawing on his control value theory, Piekren offers really practical ideas about how learning environments can be intentionally designed to influence the kinds of emotions students experience, ultimately leading to more positive learning outcomes. Schutz and his colleagues emphasize how important it is to consider emotions not just for students but also for teachers,
Right.
both in their training and in their day-to-day work. They highlight that there's a real difference between a teacher's own personal feelings and the types of emotions that might be most beneficial for their students to experience.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and they also point out the need to understand the emotional context for all learners, including how emotions might be linked to things like stereotypes and how students feel during those high-pressure testing situations.
It really all comes back to that central idea we talked about earlier, that our emotions, our motivation, and our cognitive processes are all tightly interconnected.
Yes.
If we ignore the emotional threads, we're really missing a huge part of the picture of how learning actually works.
100%.
Yeah.
And the researchers in this field are really calling for theories of learning and motivation to truly reflect this interconnectedness. By understanding and addressing the effective side of learning, we have the potential to create more engaging, more effective, and ultimately more human-centered educational experiences for everyone.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It really makes you think about learning in a completely new light.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, what's a key takeaway you want our listeners to really remember from our conversation today?
The central message is this: your emotions are not just a side effect of learning.
Okay.
They are a fundamental and inseparable part of the entire learning process.
Okay.
Paying attention to and understanding your own affective states, those moods and emotions you experience while you're learning,
Hmm.
can give you incredibly valuable insights into your own personal learning journey, what truly motivates you, and how you process new information.
That's a really powerful thought to kind of take away. And on that note, here's something for you to really think about.
Okay.
Consider a time when you felt a strong emotion.
Hmm.
It could be positive excitement, maybe negative frustration, while you were trying to learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that specific emotion actually influenced your ability to understand and remember that information?
Hmm.
And now knowing what we've discussed today about this interplay between your feelings, your motivation, and your cognitive processes,
Yes.
what might you do differently the next time you find yourself in a similar learning situation?
That's a great question for reflection. And if you're curious to explore this topic even further,
Yes.
we've included links to the original research and some related resources.
Awesome.
This deep dive has really only scratched the surface of what is a truly fascinating and increasingly important area of study.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
This has been really, really interesting.
My pleasure.
And everyone listening, we'll see you next time.